right, we don't have a lot of time left with David Icke, so I want to go to your phone calls. That's the whole point of us going into overdrive. Next time I have him, I've got to just share him with the callers, but we just talk about so much and the nature of reality. Who's up first here, guys, on the phone system? I'm sorry, I can't hear that caller. Can't hear you guys either. Austin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Gary. You're on the air with David Icke. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you both. Alex, you're doing an amazing job. I really appreciate what you're doing. David, it's great to hear you on the show. Really quick thing about chemtrails. We're seeing tons of them across America right now, and I went and did my research. 2 questions. One, how can we make it more public because the media's ignored all my requests to take a look at it? And 2, when I researched it and I dug into the patent, Hughes patent, they were going to use thorium oxide and aluminum oxide, and right now they're actually using barium oxide. Now, if they really wanted to wipe us out quickly, thorium oxide will cause men to go sterile. But they chose barium oxide.
Well, let me stop you. You say they chose. That's only one program, and I've looked at that as well. There's thousands of different programs going on, and they're spraying a whole bunch of different types of metals and oxides into the atmosphere. David Icke, the chemtrails, an attempt to poison us?
Well, I was earlier this year in Arizona, and I was sitting in a house every morning watching the sky. I think it was coming up from an Arizona air base, the sky being crisscrossed every day until the blue sky had disappeared, and it was just all the chemtrails joined together to make a cloudy day. It was extraordinary. It happened day after day after day after day. I'll tell you what my information is, and that's that among all the other stuff that is identifiable in these chemtrails, what is also in there is nanotechnology. It's interesting what you mentioned earlier in the show, Alex, and I think this is one way they're putting nanotechnology into the atmosphere. I feel myself that the chemtrails and the HAARP system are completely connected. I mean, I think there's multi-reasons why the chemtrails are there, and there's multi-things in them to have multi-effects. But I think what they're trying to do is create a sub-reality around the Earth. A simple thing. How do you affect all the fish? You affect the sea. And the radio waves bouncing off the ionosphere from HAARP and the way they're changing the lower atmosphere, I think, are fundamentally connected. I've not connected everything there, but I'm sure that that's where the truth lies. And it's to do with creating a sub-reality in which they can feed in these thought forms and thought messages through the radio waves on the frequency of the human body computer receiver transmission frequencies. So they're feeding realities into us that way as well.
Well, we know that, I mean, I remember you talking about this over a decade ago, seeing government documents and patents, but I saw the Baltimore Sun like 7 years ago saying, oh, DARPA's going to put in U.S. cities towers with different wavelengths they found to calm people if there's ever an emergency. I mean, they are admitting they're doing this. This is not our opinion.
Yeah, and in They Live, where at the end of the movie they find that there's a transmission from the top of the TV tower, which is making it impossible for the public to see the real controllers. I think that is also massively based on truth, because the body computer has a receiver-transmitter frequency. If they can find technology, and of course they have, which can broadcast on that frequency, they're actually feeding information into the human mind. And of course, what do people think? They think it's their thoughts. And also, it can shut the human mind down, so it's not seeing certain frequencies on which certain things are happening, so that they're going on, and we can't even see them, just as They Live kind of symbolized.
Well, David, I want to take a few final calls and let you go. We've taken enough of your time, but why did you wake up? Why did I wake up? Why do some people wake up and other people don't?
Well, I think that it's literally the depth of programming. You know, if you are surrounded by 6 foot of concrete, it's much more difficult to perceive what's outside. You know, if you've got an inch of concrete, then you might hear something. And what's happening is that the people are waking up and in accordance to how asleep they were. And what's happening now is people are waking up who further back down the line were very asleep, and that's very, very encouraging.
What about genetics? You're always saying that the elites are obsessed with genetics, and we know they are because they want to focus the genetics for the type of predatory system they're into. Is it also genetics to be awake to this?
Well, consciousness can overpower the computer. What overpower the reality of the computer? What they're trying to do is put people so powerfully into computer reality through genetic manipulation. And of course, genetically modified food is only there for one reason: it's to genetically modify us.
Well, they admit it kills the animals they feed it to.
Yeah, so that the body computer becomes a less and less effective receiver transmitter of higher levels of information. I don't know how long we got left, but let me say this:
you got as much time as you want, but I don't want to keep you past.
I just want to say this one thing, because you brought up this thing about genetics. This is what I feel. You know, I've talked about this reptilian stuff, and people kind of immediately kind of dismiss it because it's so different to their reality. You look at some of the things in the Bible, you look at endless accounts in other ancient writings, and you'll see this theme coming up. For me, I mean, do people think that the snake in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, which was all about genetics and the changing of humanity and all the rest of it, and leaving the paradise, do they think it was literally a snake? And that story can be found in the same basic form all over the world. Well,
it wasn't. He had legs. It says...
Yes, exactly. The Jewish name for that snake actually refers to a humanoid being. Now, for me, that whole Adam and Eve kind of symbolism, which you find around the world where it talks about these reptilian gods manipulating human genetics, for me, what they've done, and there's increasing hard genetic evidence for this, is they spliced the genes around and the DNA around so that we stopped decoding the frequency on which these people live. Because if you look at ancient accounts, they talk about the gods living amongst them. Well, where the hell are these gods? I'll tell you what I feel. And also they talk about people living incredible long lives and incredible things that they could see that we think, oh, that must be fantasy because we can't see it. I would say very strongly, my research is moving so fast in this direction that the human form has been genetically manipulated, and we used to have far more strands of DNA than we do now, and this all relates to this junk DNA that they say they don't know what it does. Well, I'll tell you what it does. It connects us to all those frequency areas we could decode at one point that we can't decode now. What we call dark energy, dark mass is just a continuation of the reality that we have. Because of the manipulation of the receiver-transmitter decoder, the body, we're not accessing the range of that reality that we used to.
Well, by the way, David, this is not just your opinion. As you know, major scientific institutions, governments had always said it was junk DNA, but now they're noticing that even if you believe in evolution, on a different evolutionary curve, humans have in their DNA copies of all these other life forms that aren't in our supposed evolutionary development with the way that, they've put out evolution and all the disinformation packaged on that. And top scientists who were atheists are now saying, I don't know what made it, but this stuff is engineered.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the human condition can be brilliantly symbolized by what's happening in China. We have a collective reality called the Internet, which is very, very, in a much lesser way, of course, very symbolic of the reality we're actually experiencing, the Matrix. What they do in China, the authorities, because they don't want the people to have access to information that could wake them up and get them to see the situation, is they're firewalling off computers, of course, so that people in China can only access a much smaller part of the Internet than the rest of the population of the world.
But that didn't work. Hold on. That didn't work. So now they're going to, by law, make all new computers have a self-regulator built into it. That's the drugs, that's the chemicals, that's the programming in the computer itself, not just the network.
Yeah, and what initially happened, I would suggest, is that those body computers were programmed to not receive and therefore decode and experience the range of frequencies we could before, which scientists are calling dark mass, dark energy in this universe. And so we're actually, and look at it, visible light, the only frequency range that we can perceive, is ludicrously tiny. Why? Because it's been the body computer has been made to only access that frequency, and that's what's happened, and that's why we can't see the gods now that operate just outside of visible light, as the ancient accounts talked about in eons ago.
Amazing. We promised to go through these calls. We're going to end the show in just a few minutes here. Quickly, I've just got a new list here. Let's talk to Leo. Leo, you're on the air with David Icke. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Leo from Arcturus.
Okay, let's not screw around. Go ahead and ask your question to David Icke, or I'm going to move on.
Okay, I think we should start letting everybody know about Hitler's brown shirts being done in on the Night of the Long Knives, because that's how we get the police to understand that they're disposable. And as far as calling people sheeple, it's an insult to sheep, because sheep are way too smart to watch television. And we should call them asleeple, because they're sleepwalking through life.
I hear you, Leo. I appreciate your call. Yes.